Hey guys, Wyatt back with you once again for another video. I'm gonna do a review today of a movie I just finished watching. It's a pile of shit. It's Happy Valley, the Penn State documentary about the scandal and all that. It is a pile of shit. It is not what we think. It's very F the media, pro Paterno. Paterno wouldn't do anything wrong. He's a great guy. Why would he do anything wrong? That's bullshit. This man trusted Jerry Sandusky with everything. Jerry Sandusky screwed that up. He had sex with a lot of people, with a ton of boys, okay? I don't even know the number. I'm just going to say a ton. I don't know the number. I know there's a lot of them. He did not seem to have a problem with it. Now, in the documentary, one of the first people you see at all is Jerry Sandusky's adopted son named Matt. I think that's his name. Yeah, I think it's Matt. Talking about how they show the house he lived in and that Jerry Sandusky was a great guy because the house he lived in was 20 people living in one house. They had no running water, and how great of a man he was because if he wasn't around, he would have had no life or whatever the hell it was talking about. And then we get into the whole thing of F the media by just the whole idea that the media blew it up. This is not a media problem. This is a Penn State problem. This was not a football problem. Now, was it, the reason why I was reason why ESPN was all into this is because Jerry Sandusky was an assistant under Joe Paterno, like the quarterback's coach or something like that back in '98. I don't remember. I think it was a quarterback's coach. So that's the only reason why this was involved in sports, because the football coaches were involved. And a graduate assistant at the time, Mike McCreary, he was the very first guy, involved in the football program to ever notice it, to ever report it. Joe Paterno did not do a good job. He just wiped it up and said, okay, and went back home. He gets fired. Then, not that long after, he gets diagnosed with cancer and dies. So, we don't really know everything that happened. All we know is that this documentary is fucked up. This is a fucked up situation, and the documentary is saying that Joe Paterno is a great guy. We should all worship him. So the only people they got to talk in this whole documentary, Joe Paterno's two sons, Joe Paterno's wife, Jerry Sandusky's adopted son, Matt. Who cares? Who gives a shit? And Joe Podnansky, the guy that wrote the book that I have over there on my bookshelf, and the guy that painted the mural, and talking to the guy he painted the mural. He's talking about how he had to take Jerry Sandusky to paint over Jerry Sandusky because that's a great idea, right? That's the guy. That's who you get. Then you get the Penn State film professor. Who gives a shit about him? Then you get some lawyer who has nothing to do with it. The guy that wrote the report, the guy who ran the law office, who is responsible for the report. Who cares about him? You get all sorts of these people that are nothing. This is just this movie about nothing. It doesn't even talk about everything that happened. It just very quickly talks about it, and it doesn't, and it goes really slow, and I just think ESPN, if they did this in 30 for 30, it'd be much better because ESPN understands what the fans want. The fans, everybody wants to know more about it. Well, I rented this movie off Netflix thinking that it would be everything. It wasn't. Everyone's been bitching about the Ninja Turtles documentary. Well, this is my version of it. I don't care about the Ninja Turtles, but I do care about the fact that this documentary is that. It's what everybody complained about the Ninja Turtles documentary. How it wasn't this, it wasn't that. That's what this is right here. It has nothing to do with. It has nothing to do with the the whole issue. It has to do with Paterno's family. You see him driving, one of his sons driving around for the whole half of the movie. That doesn't do any good. It's not what you want. You want a story. You want a documentary that hits on the story, that hits on the scandal. This just hit on the students. Oh, and then we get, and the other guy in the movie, I forget who was a loser, was a student who basically said that this had nothing to do with football because they showed a. We know that already. We know that already. We know this wasn't a football problem. This was a university problem that was brought to the attention of was brought into the news by the football program. This has nothing to do with football, but because of who was involved, that's why it became a sports issue, sports related news story. Not a sports issue, but a sports related news story. Because, it's just so important. This guy is so important. We have to really think good thoughts about it, I think. Because we also want, and I also want more. Okay, it ends in a flash. You see, the Jerry Sandusky's son talking about, you know, what's how he's how he's doing after the fact and all that, and it's over. So it really isn't that informative. It really isn't. Um, ESPN would do a better job doing a 30 for 30 on this. That'd be much better. I actually would love to see it. I'm not surprised about that. I won't be surprised if they do it because, excuse me, ugh, they've talked about everything else in the world of sports. Marion Jones, the whole, the tragedy in England at that soccer stadium. I forget what they called that one, but that was interesting. And then they've talked about Joe Steinbrenner and all that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they end up doing one on this subject. It'd be much better than this. Now, the only feature you get on the DVD is a interview done by the San Francisco Public Radio, interviewing the director, who I've never even heard of, who did a terrible job on this documentary because he didn't touch anything. He didn't go anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. It's all about fuck the media. The media did this to us. There's actually a scene in it where some assholes are yelling at, saying "F you, ESPN" to the reporter. Who cares? Who cares? I mean, I kind of sound biased towards ESPN because I am. Okay, I watch it every day, all day almost. Sometimes when I'm not working, and I just think that this was just basically saying to us. It was only talking about the feelings. There was no facts. It was all feelings. Everybody on there, other than Joe Pardasky, were all talking about feelings. They were not talking about the facts. It was only about what they felt. And who cares how they feel? Who cares? It means nothing to anyone whatsoever. Not to me, not to anyone who watches this. I guarantee you, whoever watches this will not care how these people feel. Because it doesn't matter. It happened almost 3 years ago now. Who cares? You know, this was handled badly by the NCAA. We know that already. We know that already. You know, this the football players should not have had to deal with this whatsoever. This should have been just a university. This should have been a problem in the university. This should not have anything to do with the football players that were there back in 2013. Okay? End of story. That's it. I'm sick and tired of hearing about that. That this was a big that this was, a media problem. No, it wasn't. It was the NCAA and Penn State. It has nothing to do with football. It has to do with Mark Emmert, who decided that I'll just punish everybody because, why wouldn't I? I'm Mark Emmert. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to punish everybody, even though they had nothing to do with it whatsoever. These football players, I know you could say they were given the opportunity to transfer and all that. These football players weren't even probably playing football. Some of them probably weren't even playing football back then. So who gives a shit, about, everything that could happen and all. Who cares? The only thing I care about is getting rid of this documentary. And I'm not gonna watch it again. I rented it. I have it on my Amazon wish list. And I'm not gonna buy it off Amazon. I will not, because it's shit. ESPN needs to make a new documentary and be done. Then I'd be happy and I would shut up. They gotta do it. So that's my review. See you guys later. Bye.